welcome to another edition of Random Chaos. I am back at the Joe Torres Memorial, and I wanted to do a second part to this from the last video I did on the murder and grave of Joe Campos Torres, who was the Mexican-American Vietnam veteran who was murdered at the hands of the Houston Police Department. And I'm at the location of his death again, where he's murdered, just right over there. And but I got the mural of him behind me, and I wanted to talk about 4 Texas-based punk rock bands who reacted to his murder by writing songs. Now, the first band, I'm going to start with the 2 bands that were based here in Houston. And the first band was called the AK-47s. And they put out a single called "The Badge Means You Suck." And it was pretty much against the police murdering Joe Campos Torres plus 2 other people. And they mentioned the names of the victims in their song. And the AK-47s actually got a lot of flack for it by the Houston Police Department when they discovered the song back in 1980. Yeah, the band lasted from at least 1980 to 1986. But yeah, the Houston police found out about that song, and they pretty much got their panties in a tight wad on that. And so they set out to file a lawsuit on the band, and they ended up dropping the lawsuit because they could never identify the members of the band, because obviously they probably didn't put their real names on the album cover or anything. And this is before internet, back in pre-internet days and pre-Facebook days and everything, YouTube. But the band got really scared, and they actually went into hiding for a while. I was laying low during this, and they ended up dropping the lawsuit because they couldn't identify the band members. And during this time in the 80s, the Houston police were also known to raid record stores that was carrying those albums, hassle the owner of the store, maybe destroy the albums or something, or take them as evidence. Something, just to get them out of people's hands. They didn't want people hearing that song, because "The Badge Means You Suck" was a play on words on the Houston Police's slogan, "The badge means we care." So when they heard "The Badge Means You Suck," they took it really personal. And back then, no telling what could have happened to the band members if they were identified. They could have ended up like another Joe Torres case right here, all 4 of the members. But, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, you write a song against something that happened, and if you're into punk rock bands and you have a punk rock mind and you want to do something like that, do it. Freedom of speech. Write a song of protest or something, anything. You can do it. And, but anyway, yeah, the AK-47s was a great band. I'm not going to post their music on YouTube because I don't want to pick up a copyright claim, but you can find it on YouTube or some other music sites. I don't know if it's on Spotify or anything, but, and, so check it out. I'm not going to post it, but keep an open mind. There's some words in there that could be considered offensive nowadays. A lot of these songs are just explaining what happened and the mentality of the police at the time. So that was one band. You can probably actually still buy the single. I think you can online. You can buy "The Badge Means You Suck" by the AK-47s on Discogs, eBay, maybe Amazon. Check it out, look it up on search engine. But anyway, that was the first band. The second band that wrote a song about Joe Torres was another Houston-based band called Really Red. And Really Red wrote a song called "Teaching You the Fear." Talk about police brutality and the murder of Joe Torres. And plus the 2 other victims that were murdered at the hands of the Houston police. And those other guys' names was Milton Glover and Carl Hampton. That's another story for another video. I'll look into that more. But Really Red wrote the song "Teaching You the Fear," and it really kind of explains, also with Joe's name in it, Milton Glover and Carl Hampton. singing about what happened to them and how it was murder and how they were picked off and racial profiling and tons of police brutality. And it's a good song too. Check it out. It's on YouTube, just like the others. All these bands I mentioned is up on YouTube. And you know, really read that. It was a really good song too. And I have it on my phone. I listened to it just before I got here, plus the AK-47s. Just have it fresh in my head right now while I'm doing this video. Anyway, now the next two bands are based in Austin, Texas. One band, I'm actually wearing their shirt right here, the Dicks. The Dicks put out a single called Hate the Police. And that was, they don't mention the proper names in the song, but it mentions killing certain races of people. And they did write this song as sort of a protest of the murder of Joe Torres. And that's, the song also contains some words that I'm not going to say here. But this was back in the 80s, early 80s, and the song is pretty much in third person. So these offensive words, you know, you just got to keep an open mind. They're not saying anything bad about it. They're just saying what happened and the police mentality and other people's mentality back then. Because back in the 1980s, it was dangerous to be a punk rocker or be in a punk band or look different. If you had a mohawk or safety pins through your nose, face piercings, whatever, you know, if you didn't look like them, you were the enemy. Police would target you, rednecks would target you, jocks would target you, even metalheads back then. Metalheads and punks didn't get along in the early 80s. And plus, the Dicks were also known, the lead singer, Gary Floyd, was openly gay. So, and he had no problem with that. He'd admit it. And so also being gay was, people are still being targeted for it nowadays. And they would often play shows dressed in drag, and they played their last show in 2016 in Austin, Texas at the place called the Grizzly Hole. They ended that set that night on Halloween night with the song Hate the Police. And Hate the Police was also covered by another band called Mudhoney. Both those versions are up on YouTube. Mudhoney did a good job at it, but the original just blows me away. And, you know, and another thing about the Dicks is, if you see on my shirt, the sickle and the hammer, they were pro-commie. They were openly pro-commie. They claimed to be pro-commie. And Gary Floyd had no problem with admitting that. That's something else that'll still get you killed to this day. Now, Gary Floyd is still alive. I believe he's living up in California, Oregon. I'm sorry, I read that the other day and it slipped my mind, but he's an old man now. He's calmed down a lot. You know, I'll put some pictures up in this video of all the bands and pictures of them. So you can check it out. And Gary Floyd also wrote a book or two. At least I know he wrote one book called Be Nice. And you can get that on Amazon. I haven't read it. I looked into it. I want to buy it eventually. But you know, as I said, just be yourself when if you're writing a song. Talk about what you want. Don't, you know, hold back, man. Don't hold back. You know, just say what you're going to say in these songs and do it that way. Now, one other last band I want to mention that was based in Austin, Texas, and are still around to this day, now living in Portland, Oregon, I believe, is a band called MDC. MDC is an acronym for Millions of Dead Cops. And I believe that's why they named their band that. And they have a song called Dead Cops. It was in protest of these brutal murders of police officers murdering innocent people, you know, anywhere really. But being that they were from Austin, Texas, I'm sure they heard about this back then, because they've been around forever. In fact, MDC was just in Houston maybe a month or two ago playing a show. They're still around, which is awesome. Unfortunately, the other 3 bands aren't doing anything anymore. The Dicks kind of called it quits. However, they were talking about playing another Dick show in 2019, but I believe the pandemic caused them to cancel it and not do it, and nothing's ever been heard since if they're actually going to do one more reunion. I would love it if they did, because I would definitely go to that. I don't care. And if AK-47s ever did anything again, or Really Red, if MDC ever comes to Houston, you're going to check it out. But anyway, you know, police brutality, you know, it happens, man. It's not a dream, as in the song by the Subhumans. You know, it's a real thing, man. So just be cool. Don't try not to get in any police entanglements. You know, whatever you can do, don't do it if it's going to cause trouble like that. And I believe it's starting to get dark. I'm looking at my screen now, and it's looking a little bit darker. But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. You know, when things happen on such major levels, you know, people are going to protest with song, fly signs, whatever. You know, as long as it's not enticing riots or causing violence, protest and survive. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that right here at the Joe Torres Memorial. I'm going to walk up there in a minute again, pay my respects to him. But anyway, until next time, let's be cool, love one another, you know, and listen and learn and do your own thing, man. And until the next time on Random Chaos, I'll see you later. Now I'm up here now. This is the location where Joe Torres was murdered. I know I put this in the last video about him, but I just wanted to show it again, man. You know, it just disgusts me what happened here. It looks like that used to be a sidewalk down, or not a sidewalk, a walkway from when the warehouse was here, where the police used to hide behind the warehouse, in which they brought Joe Torres to assault him viciously and dump his body right over this wall into the water down there, where he drowned while being handcuffed and intoxicated. Now, you know, if you haven't checked out the other video about it, Joe Torres was intoxicated and handcuffed while he was being beaten May 5th, 1977, and dumped over this wall right here into the Buffalo Bayou. His body was found a couple days later by a boater, I found out, a fisherman in the water here. And the 2 cops never really did any time for it. 1 year probation and a $1 fine for the 2 officers that started it all. Now, one more thing I wanted to add about the Dicks was how they got their start. They actually started out as a fake band, and Gary Floyd would write fake flyers about a fake show, this fake band called the Dicks. It didn't even exist yet, but he would post them around Austin, Texas, or wherever, to see how people would look at it and react. And I can imagine a lot of people just sit there scratching their heads reading this thing. The Dicks are playing at such and such place, and saying to themselves, the Dicks? Oh, what's that all about? It sounds perverted. Well, I guess it works for some people, you know. They may have fell for it, was wondering that for a while. Something I would do, and I just might. But I just imagine, like, starting out as a fake band, but later on, the friends, they decided they needed to start this band and make it happen for real, and they did back in, I believe, like 1980, 1979 maybe. And like I said, they lasted up until about, I don't know, they came back and played in 2016. Then they were going to do that last show, which I talked about a while ago. They ended up not doing it in 2019, but It's funny because the Dicks have a song called Fake Bands. You can find it on YouTube, so check it out. It's not going to go on here on my channel. I'm not going to get copyright claim. I already got one for some background music at a anti-war rally for Ukraine a few months back. So anyway, until next time, see ya from Random Chaos.